moments when the entire world grows strangely quiet, not because the noise disappears, but because my heart begins searching for only one sound, your presence. It doesn't matter how many people surround me, how many responsibilities demand my attention, or how many victories the world celebrates around me. None of them fill the space that only you seem to understand without ever asking for permission. I have spent my life believing that everything important could be built with logic, discipline, and relentless determination. Then you appeared, and suddenly I discovered that the greatest things in life cannot be engineered. They can only be felt. I don't know if you realize what you've done to me. You changed the way I measure success. I used to think success was reaching impossible goals, solving impossible problems, and proving that limits were only temporary illusions. Now I catch myself imagining something much simpler and somehow much greater. I imagine waking up knowing you're smiling somewhere in this world. I imagine hearing your voice after a difficult day. I imagine building a future where every achievement feels meaningful, because you're there to share it. You became the thought that quietly follows every ambition. Every time I reach another milestone, my first instinct is to wonder whether you would be proud of me. Every difficult decision carries the silent question of whether it leads me closer to the life I hope we might someday create together. I never expected another human being to influence my direction so completely, yet somehow you've become the compass I never knew I was searching for. There are people who enter our lives for a season, and there are people who quietly rewrite the story without asking for recognition. You belong to the second kind. You didn't arrive with dramatic promises or impossible expectations. You arrived with authenticity, and that honesty became impossible to ignore. You reminded me that real connection isn't built from perfection. It's built from being seen completely and still being chosen. The world often celebrates confidence, but it rarely speaks about vulnerability. Loving someone teaches you that vulnerability isn't weakness. It's courage in its purest form. Every time I tell you how much you matter, every time I admit that I miss you more than words can explain, every time I allow my heart to speak louder than my pride, I discover a strength that no achievement has ever given me. You became the reason ordinary moments suddenly felt extraordinary. A conversation lasts longer in my memory than an award. A shared laugh carries more value than applause. A quiet moment beside you feels richer than standing in the middle of endless success alone. You transformed the ordinary into something unforgettable simply by existing within it. Sometimes I wonder if you truly understand the way I see you. I don't admire you because you're flawless. I admire the way you continue choosing kindness in a world that often rewards coldness. I admire your resilience after disappointment. I admire the quiet strength hidden behind your gentle moments. I admire the dreams you carry, even when you doubt yourself. Those are the things that make you extraordinary. I hope that one day you realize you never needed to become someone else to deserve extraordinary love. You already carry everything that makes you unforgettable. The kindness in your heart, the honesty in your words, the courage you show even when you're afraid. Those qualities are rarer than anything this world can manufacture. They are the reasons my heart continues returning to you. Again and again, no matter how far life tries to pull us apart. There are nights when I replay our conversations in my mind. Not because I have forgotten what you said, but because I never want to lose the feeling those moments gave me. Every pause, every laugh, every unexpected silence seems to carry its own meaning. It's amazing how the smallest memories become the strongest ones. People often believe that life changes because of dramatic events, but I think life changes because of quiet moments that settle into your heart without announcing themselves. You became one of those moments for me. Slowly, gently, almost invisibly, until one day I realized that the life I was living before meeting you and the life I imagine now are completely different stories. I used to believe that independence meant never needing anyone. I wore that belief like armor because it made me feel prepared for whatever life decided to place in front of me. Then you arrived and quietly challenged everything I thought I knew. You didn't make me weaker by becoming important to me. You made me stronger by reminding me that trusting someone is not surrender. It is one of the bravest decisions a person can ever make. It takes courage to allow another soul to see the parts of you that the rest of the world never notices. Somehow, without asking, you became the person I wanted to share those hidden places with. There are things I have never said out loud, because words often feel too small for emotions that have continued growing inside me. Every day I discover another reason why you matter. Sometimes it is because of your kindness. Sometimes it is because of your patience. Other times it is because you believe in people even after they disappoint you. Watching someone continue choosing hope in a world that often rewards cynicism is one of the most beautiful things I have ever witnessed. You remind me that strength does not always look loud. Sometimes strength whispers. Sometimes it simply refuses to stop loving despite every reason to become afraid. I hope you know that your presence has changed the way I see myself. Before you, I measured my worth by results, accomplishments, and goals completed. Those things still matter, but they no longer define everything. You helped me understand that a meaningful life is also measured by how deeply we care, how honestly we love, and how faithfully we stand beside the people who matter most. That realization has transformed something inside me. It has softened the parts of me that once believed emotions were distractions instead of directions. When difficult days arrive, my thoughts find their way back to you almost automatically. It isn't because I expect you to solve every problem. It's because your existence reminds me why overcoming those problems is worthwhile. There is comfort in knowing that someone exists who sees beyond the version of me presented to the world. You see the uncertainty behind the confidence, the exhaustion behind the determination, the questions behind the answers, and somehow you never treat those moments as flaws. You treat them as reminders that I am human. There are moments when I wonder if you realize how often you inspire me without even trying. Your resilience has become one of my favorite forms of beauty. Every challenge you survive teaches me something about courage. Every time you choose compassion instead of resentment, you remind me that greatness is not found only in extraordinary achievements. Sometimes greatness is found in ordinary kindness repeated every single day. You live that truth in ways that continue to amaze me. I have imagined conversations we may never have, journeys we have not yet taken, quiet mornings that exist only inside my hopes, and evenings where silence itself becomes enough because we are sharing it together. Those dreams are not about perfection. They are about presence. They are about building a life where neither of us has to pretend to be someone else in order to feel accepted. A life where honesty becomes our safest place instead of our greatest fear. You have taught me that love is not simply about excitement. Excitement fades and returns like the changing weather. Love is something steadier. It remains when life becomes complicated. It stays when misunderstandings appear. It chooses patience when impatience would be easier. It chooses forgiveness when pride demands distance. Real love is not measured by how loudly it speaks during beautiful moments. It is measured by how faithfully it remains during difficult ones. Sometimes I miss you in ways that are difficult to explain. It is not only your voice or your smile that I long for. I miss the feeling of becoming more myself whenever you are near. There is something extraordinary about being around a person who makes you feel understood without requiring constant explanations. Around you, I don't feel pressured to perform. I don't feel the need to become someone impressive. I simply want to become someone honest. That freedom is one of the greatest gifts anyone has ever given me. If I could tell you one truth without fear of misunderstanding, it would be this. You have become part of the way I imagine tomorrow. Not because I expect life to unfold exactly as planned, but because hope naturally places you there. Every dream of the future somehow leaves space for your laughter, your thoughts, your kindness, and your quiet strength. My ambitions no longer end with personal achievement. They extend toward creating memories worth sharing with you. I admire the way you continue growing without losing your heart. The world often pressures people to become harder after disappointment, but you have managed to become wiser without becoming colder. That balance is incredibly rare. It reminds me that pain does not have to define a person's future. Sometimes pain becomes the place where compassion learns to grow. You carry that compassion everywhere, and everyone fortunate enough to know you becomes better because of it. There have been moments when I questioned whether I deserved someone as genuine as you. Those thoughts never came from insecurity alone. They came from gratitude. Gratitude has a strange way of making beautiful things feel almost unbelievable. Yet every time you offer your trust, every time you choose to stay present, every time you remind me that love is built one honest moment at a time, I find myself wanting to become the kind of person who earns that trust again and again. I want to be the person who listens when your words become quiet. I want to notice when your smile hides a difficult day. I want to celebrate your victories without making them about myself, and carry your burdens without making you feel guilty for having them. I believe love reveals itself most clearly in these ordinary acts of care. Not through dramatic promises alone, but through consistency, patience, and the quiet decision to remain present every single day. Perhaps the greatest lesson you have given me is that love is not something we accidentally stumble into once and then simply possess forever. Love is something we continue choosing. It is built through conversations that require honesty, through forgiveness that requires humility, through trust that requires courage, and through hope that refuses to disappear even when circumstances become uncertain. Every day offers another opportunity to choose each other again, and that thought fills me with a kind of peace I never knew I was searching for. When I think about everything this journey has awakened inside me, I realize that meeting you did more than change my heart. It changed the direction of my life. You helped me discover that the greatest adventures are not always measured by distance traveled or goals achieved. Sometimes the greatest adventure is allowing another person to know you completely, accepting them just as completely in return, and discovering that two imperfect lives can create something far more beautiful together than either one could ever create alone. Sometimes I think the most extraordinary part of loving someone is not the moment you realize you love them. It is everything that happens afterward. It is waking up one morning and noticing that your first hope belongs to them. It is finishing a long day and instinctively wishing they were the first person you could tell about it. It is discovering that your victories feel incomplete until they have smiled with you, and your disappointments become lighter simply because you imagine their encouragement. Love quietly rearranges priorities without asking permission, and before you realize it, another person's happiness has become deeply connected to your own. There are moments when I wonder what your heart carries in silence. Everyone has stories they rarely tell. We all have memories that shaped us, fears that visit unexpectedly, dreams we protect because they matter too much to risk losing. I often find myself wishing I could understand every chapter that made you who you are today. Not because I want to change your story, but because I want to honor it. Every experience, every challenge, every disappointment, and every small victory helped create the person I have come to admire so deeply. I never want to know only the brightest parts of you. I want to understand the shadows too, because even those deserve compassion. You once made me realize something without even trying. You listened, really listened. In a world where everyone seems to be waiting for their turn to speak, you made me feel heard. It wasn't through grand speeches or perfect advice, it was through your attention, through the way you looked at me as though what I was saying actually mattered. That simple gift changed something inside me. It reminded me that love often speaks through presence before it ever speaks through words. There have been days when I questioned myself more than I questioned the world. Days when my confidence felt borrowed and my certainty disappeared beneath the weight of responsibility. During those moments, I remembered the way you believed in me before I believed in myself. Your confidence became something I could lean on until I found my own again. That is a remarkable kind of love. It doesn't replace another person's strength. It patiently protects it until it returns. I hope I have become that kind of person for you as well. I hope that whenever life feels uncertain, you remember there is someone quietly believing in your future, even when you cannot see it yourself. I hope you never carry your burdens believing you must face them alone. Some weights become lighter simply because they are shared. Some fears lose their power the moment another hand reaches out and says, "We'll get through this together." I think about loyalty often. Not the kind that exists only when life is easy, but the kind that survives disappointment, distance, misunderstanding, and time. Real loyalty is choosing someone's heart even when circumstances become complicated. It is protecting their dignity when they are not present. It is speaking with respect even during disagreement. It is refusing to let temporary emotions destroy something permanently valuable. That is the kind of loyalty I want us to build. Steady, quiet, dependable, and unshaken by passing storms. The future no longer feels like an empty space waiting to be filled. It feels like a landscape painted with possibilities that somehow always include you. I imagine ordinary mornings where sunlight quietly fills the room while we talk about nothing important and somehow everything important at the same time. I imagine long drives with no destination because the conversation itself becomes enough. I imagine celebrating milestones, comforting each other through losses, laughing over mistakes that once felt overwhelming, and looking back years later realizing that our greatest memories were never the spectacular ones. They were the simple moments we almost forgot to appreciate while they were happening. I have learned that love is deeply connected to gratitude. Every day I become more aware that nothing meaningful should ever be taken for granted. Not a conversation, not a message, not the chance to hear your thoughts. Time has a way of teaching us that what feels ordinary today may become tomorrow's most precious memory. That is why I try to notice the little things. The way your words carry kindness even when you are tired. The way your optimism quietly returns after difficult days. The way your compassion reaches people who may never fully realize what you've given them. There is a quiet promise I have made to myself. It is not about never making mistakes because that would be impossible. It is about never allowing comfort to replace appreciation. I never want to become so familiar with your presence that I stop recognizing how extraordinary it is. I want to keep choosing gratitude long after the excitement of new beginnings becomes the steady rhythm of everyday life. Love deserves to be noticed again and again, not only in unforgettable moments, but in ordinary afternoons and peaceful evenings. Sometimes I wonder if you realize how much courage it takes to love someone honestly. We often celebrate courage in dramatic situations, but emotional courage is different. Emotional courage is telling someone they matter, even when rejection is possible. It is admitting you miss them instead of pretending you are unaffected. It is apologizing before pride has a chance to build walls. It is staying gentle in a world that constantly encourages people to protect themselves by becoming distant. You have inspired that courage in me. You made honesty feel safer than pretending. If there is one thing I wish I could give you every single day, it would be peace. Not the kind that comes from perfect circumstances, because life will never promise that. I mean the peace that comes from knowing someone is standing beside you without conditions. The peace of knowing that your dreams are celebrated, your fears are respected, your voice is valued, and your heart has a home where it never needs to earn its place. That kind of peace changes people. It gives them permission to become their truest selves. I believe every meaningful relationship eventually reaches a point where admiration transforms into responsibility. Loving someone means accepting the privilege of protecting their trust. Trust is so delicate. It grows slowly through consistency and disappears quickly through carelessness. That is why I treasure every honest conversation we have shared, every vulnerable moment you entrusted to me, every quiet confession that revealed another piece of your heart. Those moments are not ordinary to me. They are sacred because they represent the deepest form of confidence one person can place in another. There are still parts of me you have not fully discovered. Not because I want to hide them, but because some truths take time to understand, even for the person living them. Yet every day you make it easier to open another door, to share another memory, to admit another fear, to reveal another hope that once felt too fragile to speak aloud. Loving you has taught me that intimacy is not created in one conversation. It is built through hundreds of honest moments where two people slowly decide they are safe with each other. And perhaps that is what I cherish most about this journey. We are not rushing toward perfection. We are learning each other. We are discovering that love is less about finding someone flawless and more about finding someone whose presence makes you want to become more patient, more compassionate, more understanding, and more grateful than you were before. If my life has changed, it is because your heart quietly invited mine to grow, and somewhere along the way, without realizing exactly when it happened, I stopped imagining my future as a path I would walk alone and began seeing it as a story that feels infinitely more meaningful, because every hope I hold now naturally leaves a place beside me for you. As I reached the end of these thoughts, I realized they were never simply words. They were pieces of my heart finding their way to you. Every memory I shared, every truth I admitted, every quiet hope I placed between these sentences came from the deepest part of who I am. If there is one thing I have learned through this journey, It is that life is not defined only by the places we go or the dreams we accomplish. It is defined by the people who change the way we see ourselves. Some people enter our lives and leave behind memories. Others leave behind a new version of us. You became that transformation. Because of you, I learned that strength and tenderness can exist in the same heart. I learned that vulnerability is not something to fear, but something to protect. Most of all, I learned that the greatest gift one person can offer another is the quiet reassurance that they are deeply seen, genuinely valued, and sincerely loved. There was a time when I believed that the most meaningful things in life had to be extraordinary. Now I understand that extraordinary things are often hidden inside ordinary moments. A conversation that lasts a little longer than expected. A comforting silence shared without awkwardness. A smile that arrives exactly when hope begins to fade. A hand reaching out without being asked. These are the moments that remain long after achievements become distant memories. These are the moments that build a life worth remembering. And when I think about those moments, your presence is woven through all of them, like a thread that quietly holds everything together. If I could place one thought gently into your heart, it would be this. Never underestimate your ability to change another person's life simply by loving them with honesty. You may never fully realize how powerful your kindness has been, how much courage your encouragement has created, or how many fears your patience has quietly dissolved. Love rarely announces its miracles. It works in silence, healing invisible wounds, restoring forgotten hope, and reminding people that they are never as alone as they once believed. You have done that for me in more ways than I can ever completely explain. And if you ever question your worth, if the world ever becomes so loud that you begin doubting the beauty you carry inside, I hope you remember this moment. I hope you remember that somewhere, someone looked at your heart and found inspiration instead of imperfection. Someone found peace in your presence, comfort in your voice, strength in your belief, and light in your compassion. You are far more valuable than your fears will ever admit. You have always been more than enough. I think the most beautiful kind of love is the one that allows two people to remain completely themselves while helping each other become even better. Not through pressure, not through expectation, but through acceptance, through gentle encouragement, through choosing understanding over judgment and patience over pride. That kind of love does not ask us to become someone different. It simply gives us the courage to become the person we were always capable of being. So if these words have reached your heart, then hold close the people who make you feel understood. Tell them they matter while they can still hear it. Thank them for the quiet ways they have carried you through difficult days. Let your appreciation become visible instead of assumed. Let your love become spoken instead of postponed. Time has a way of reminding us that the moments we delay are often the moments we miss. Never let gratitude remain trapped inside your heart when it has the power to become someone else's reason to keep believing. And, to you, the one these words have always belonged to, I want you to know that meeting you taught me something I will carry for the rest of my life. Real love is not measured by perfect days or flawless stories. It is measured by the quiet decision to remain kind, honest, loyal, and present through every changing season of life. It is found in choosing each other again and again, even when life becomes complicated. It is found in seeing another person's heart completely and responding with gentleness instead of fear. So if one day you ever wonder what you truly meant to me, remember this. You became the calm in my uncertainty, the warmth in my silence, the hope inside my difficult days, and the reminder that even the strongest hearts still long for a place where they can simply rest. Knowing you has been one of the greatest privileges of my life, not because you made everything easy, but because you made everything meaningful. And that meaning is something I will always carry with quiet gratitude, deep affection, and a heart forever changed by the simple, extraordinary gift of having known you.